What's going on, Minties? The Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition. And today, I'm going to do an overview of the X-Men XXL by Jim Lee from Marvel Comics, so please stay tuned. So, before we take a look at the book, though, I want to say thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel because they were kind enough to send me a copy. I know some of you Minties have been asking me to do an overview of the book, and they were kind enough to send one my way. So, let's look at the front here. This is the cover to issue 3. It's been recolored, of course. No longer the Joe Rosa's colors. Here is the spine of the book. And you can tell that the comic corner box is right here, which I love. X-Men XXL, Jim Lee. And this is something that I really enjoyed right here. And I'll talk about the colors here in a little bit. But this is the recolored poster that was inside of the deluxe edition of issue 1. It's when all of the four covers, whenever they fold it out, this is the poster that was on the inside. So they recolored it, of course. The price of the book is at $100, but that's retail price. But you can find it at places like Cheap Graphic Novels. And speaking of cheap graphic novels, here's a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off the cover price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. And check out their bargain bin for even greater deals up to 90% off cover price. And for you Minties, Cheap Graphic Novels is running a special promotion. If you're a first-time customer, let them know you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discounts, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. Okay, one of the things, of course, I'm going to do is do a size comparison. Here it is next to the Marvel's Monster Size book. It looks a lot thicker, and it is. This book is right at 336 pages long. Here it is in comparison to a comic book. I will be talking about this issue within these pages here. And here it is compared to the size of an omnibus. Again, I will be talking about the differences. And here it is next to the Marvel Treasury Edition. So you can tell this thing is gigantic. The book is 14 inches long and 21.5 inches tall. And compare that to the size of my beautiful daughter here, Alicia, who was in the original cut of this video, but we had some mix-ups. She's 47 inches tall. Let's get this book opened. Black pages. Beautiful Jim Lee. Piece of artwork. And kicking it off with the Acts of Vengeance storyline, which was a 3-part story. So it's not going to be a review of the art because it's Jim Lee, but I have to talk about the artwork because that's what this book is. So the contents of the book are over here. You can tell it's Uncanny X-Men 256 through 258, which is the Acts of Vengeance storyline, when it was originally published, who the inkers were, who the colorist was. Then moving on to Uncanny X-Men 268 to 269, 268 being his first ongoing issue when he was named the new penciler of Uncanny X-Men. And then jumping to Uncanny X-Men 274 through 277. And, of course, the Adjectiveless X-Men with Chris Claremont's final arc for X-Men with Jim Lee and Scott Williams. And that is X-Men 1, 2, and 3. Still a little bit of a close-up on all the people that put the book together here. Okay, so let's talk about it. So this is the first issue we're kicking it off with. Now, Jim Lee, of course, did one before then. He did Uncanny X-Men 248. But I think they wanted to do a comic book where he was really starting to polish his artwork. And he was really becoming the artist that we all know and love today. Because back then, he had a little mix of, like, Mark Silvestri on his art. It was still, I guess, unpolished is the way I would put it. But by now, when he is joined by Scott Williams, not in this issue, because I still believe, yeah, this is Joseph Rubinstein. When he is joined by Scott Williams, it's when everything, like whenever you have just lightning in a bottle, it all came together. This was the Team Supreme. This reminded me of the days of Chris Claremont, John Byrne, and Terry Austin. But now it was Jim Lee, Chris Claremont, and Scott Williams. And Joe Rosa. I can't not forget about that because Joe Rosas is one of my favorite, I would say top 3 favorite colorists of all time. He's up there with Steve Oliff and Paul Mounts for me. But I will say something about the colors a little bit later. Now we'll skip this issue because this is an important issue I need to talk about. But let's get to these issues here. So here's issue 269. And here's what I was going to point out. And I haven't shown any with Scott Williams on inking yet. But this stuff is done by Art Tibert. He's the inker on this book. And just looking at this gorgeous Jim Lee artwork, he's got these huge lines. These are the cross-hatching. That's how he would do shadows. And it's actually something that a lot of artists back then in the 90s try to mimic. Like, seriously, everybody in the early 90s, mid-90s, was trying to be Jim Lee. I take that back. I guess I can't say everybody. That's an absolute way of thinking. Let's just say most artists, like 90% of the artists that were around back then, that were new to the game, wanted to be Jim Lee. Because no one drew badass characters better than him. Just look at that Magneto. I remember looking at the Acts of Vengeance books, like, for the first time as they were coming out. And I was like, this guy is leagues, like, above everybody else that's drawing right now. And it's nuts because he was the same guy that did issue 248. And within a year, he had become this huge, just master of art. And one of the things I was worried about with this book, that this size, was that with Alex Ross, you know it's painted artwork. So you know it's going to look absolutely gorgeous when it's all blown up. With this, I was worried that the lines wouldn't connect or that it wouldn't be that linear when you're looking at some of this cross-hatching. But it actually works. As a matter of fact, you benefit from a book this size when you're looking at Jim Lee's artwork to appreciate the small detail that he adds into everything. Like, this is just an example, and we'll show a little more as we go through here. But just the amount of details that he's putting in each of the mechanics of the spaceships or the guns. And this is an oversized issue. This is 275. So one of the things you probably noticed was there's the 275 fold-out cover. But then that's the gold version. That's the second printing. But then there's the recolored version. This is the one that's recolored by Thomas Mason. And one of the things that I wish they had done was use the colors that they did for that X-Men 2.0 hardcover, which is just some Jim Lee issues with Chris Claremont, but they recolored everything. They took out Joe Rosas' colors. And as much as I love Joe Rosas, I think it would have benefited from just a modernization of the colors, just to appreciate Jim Lee's artwork a lot more. But here we go. Let's look at a little more here. Then we're going to do a little comparison with other editions of the books that have been released. But let's get to the X-Men, when it became the adjective list. The big #1 best-selling comic book of all time, X-Men. There's the 4 different covers. The connecting cover, that was the deluxe cover. And then, of course, issue 1. Just look at that. That just screams badass. That is so gorgeous. It's so huge. It's bigger than life. Like I said, I don't know if I'll be taking this out to read, but definitely I'll be taking it out to appreciate this wonderful and beautiful artwork. Look at the amount of detail he puts on his face. Like, a lot of people would just be like, oh no, this guy's nuts. He just did a bunch of lines and it's nonsense. But if you look at it in the shadows, it's beautifully done. It speaks volumes to what a master of the craft that he was. Look at each individual hair that he puts on Magneto's scruffy face, right? That's just amazing. And yeah, I appreciated that stuff when it was in regular format, but when it's like this, it's like, oh my god. He really took the time to add each hair in there. You know, nowadays we have a lot of artists that probably cut corners and they do a lot of copy and paste. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's just something to just appreciate more, just the amount of details, especially when you blow it up this size. I thought it would be lacking, but instead I end up appreciating it a lot more. But like I said, I wish I had used the colors that they used for the cover, or 2.0, the Thomas Mason covers. And here's the final issue. I mean, look at Forge, Banshee. I don't think they've ever looked more badass. Jim Lee's take on just his women as Magneto. his Wolverine. I mean, there's a reason why the cartoon was based on his art, right? And I'm not downplaying John Byrne or Dave Cockrum or Arthur Adams or Mark Silvestri, because those guys were all amazing artists. But Jim Lee he was in a league all of his own. Just look at the amazing amount of details that is just in one panel. Like, there's a reason why some of this, I was just flipping through issue 1, and even in issue 1, I was looking through here, and I'm noticing, some of this stuff they use for covers. That's how good he was. Some of these panels have been used for covers before. For variant covers, either at Marvel with new modernization colors, or just, trade paperbacks and things like that. That's how good this guy is. Look at this. This is a poster. But it's the inside of the comic book. Okay, sorry. I think I've gone on too much. I need let's look at the back here. As far as extras, you could probably tell the extras are in between the pages too. So you have the poster. This is a poster from the early 90s. I'm surprised they didn't use the new colors. You have the black and white pages that have not been colored. I wish they were full size, but I guess that's an artist edition, huh? Which is something I can't get into, so this is nice for me. The process of a cover. You have the thumbnail and the preliminary picture, the sketches, and the final cover sketch right here. And that is awesome. A lot of the stuff that was extras in the deluxe edition, like the things to come, was at the end of issue 1. So this stuff right here, all the stuff that you found at the end of that first volume. I mean, I wish this was splash pages. I wish this was a pull-out poster or a pull-out pages, but then this book would have been $150. So, yeah, who am I kidding? Okay, and here is covers that he did for Amazing Heroes and Advanced Comics. The recolors with the trade paperback. And this is the X-Men 20th Anniversary Edition. This is the 2.0. Mutant Genesis 2.0 is what it was called. That's what I was talking about, the new colors. And, of course, the cover that they used. Now let's do a little comparison. So here's the actual comic, 269, one of my favorite issues. And here is the oversized XXL. So we'll use this page to compare these editions. So here it is compared to the actual comic book. So you can tell the colors have been cleaned up. It's absolutely stunning. The colors pop out more. As a matter of fact, they've recolored these. I think they've recolored them in the omnibus edition to make them truer to what her colors, even though they're supposed to be blue. In the original they're red, but here they're green. So maybe one of them got it right. But anyway, I just wanted to show you all the differences here. How much vibrant the colors look in this version. Here it is compared to the omnibus. So the omnibus, of course, being bigger than the comic book, but still dwarfed in size compared to this XXL. This is probably the colors that they used for this. The same files were used for this, except they blew it up. But the amount of detail is what's awesome when looking at this book here. Now, this one's a little odd to compare because this is supposed to be a retro look to it. This is from the Grand Design. But even here, they colored Jubilee's colors actually the way they're supposed to be. Her shorts are supposed to be blue. I did find that interesting. But everything else looks, actually, honestly, this looks a lot better. But that's because this is supposed to have that retro yellow paper look to it. I'd love to know what the Jack Kirby art looked like with this and those colors that they used back then. Because I don't have that book, the Monster Size Kirby book. So I'd love to know if you benefited from that book as much as I think I benefited from this book. Because to me, this brought back just how much I love Jim Lee and how he was one of my favorite artists. How much I would just try to sit there as a kid and mimic his art style, drawing over and over and over and over. Holy crap, look at this. This is a poster. I mean, you take away the dialogue bubbles and, the narration and these little captions, and this is a poster. Just recolor it. Here's the Imperial Guard. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this is a great book for those fans that love Jim Lee, that love oversized artwork, that missed out on the artist edition or the artifacts edition, whatever they are. I don't even know if there is one for Jim Lee. That's how out of the loop I am on those, because I don't need to jump over to that fence, because the last thing I need to do is spend money on those books, because I know a lot of them are out of print, and I will try to find each and every one of the ones that I want, and it'll be all of them by the time it's all said and done. But anyway, this XXL book, just a nice reminder of just looking through my young eyes again at Jim Lee's art for the first time. It's the way that I feel. Like I said, to be honest, I don't see myself reading this book. If I want that, I would probably read my omnibus or even my comic books. But if I want to appreciate the master that he is, this is the way that I would do it, by cracking this open and just getting lost in this beautiful, wonderful artwork of his. As far as the binding, you can probably tell that it was sewn binding. Here's the eye. You saw as I was flipping through it that it lays over really nice. I mean, it has to. And that was the contents of this big, gigantic, massive book. Let me know in the comments down below if you've picked it up, because I already know if you're a huge Jim Lee fan, you already got this, or you got it pre-ordered and it's on the way. Or let me know if you were on the fence about it, if you didn't quite know exactly what this was. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button, and that notifications button if you want to be notified when our videos are going up. Join us on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at NearMintCon. We can also be found on Redbubble and Patreon, and all of that is in the description down below. And remember, if it's classy and cool, it must be near mint.